Welcome, everybody. Gonna give it a moment while Devin is letting people in the room for this evening. Welcome to another Unreeling storytelling event. This one is Ideas That Ignite. I'm really excited for this one. Um, just gonna speak for a few moments about why we started Unreeling storytelling. My name is Jason Fulford, and Devan Sandiford, who's also one of our storytellers tonight, is the other co-founder. And his kids actually go to the school that I work at, and we built a relationship, a friendship, through me seeing him in the mornings while he would drop them off. And I just want to say, first of off, Devin, like how much joy that used to bring me. And for my things that really missed in 2020 was seeing you bring your kids to school. I just wanted to make sure we had a rough year, everybody. And we've moved on. We've gotten past it. We're now in 2021. I think 2020 was just not the year that we expected. And it's funny because I was thinking today, I'm like, New Year's always comes, and it's like, oh, this year was crazy, or this was a crazy year, so and so. Like all these different terms and expressions are thrown out, and it's like, no, this was the year. 2020 was a very difficult year because so many things changed. But I think as much as things changed, I think that we all learned how to become more community oriented. And when we have these storytelling events, it's more about building community and learning from people's different perspectives and different walks through life, because often we're entertained by things that aren't real. They're just entertaining. And what these beautiful souls are about to do is share their real experiences. And I just feel like, so that's why me and Devin wanted to start that. And also we wanted to bring more diversity to the storytelling world. And I think once you meet our cast and experience any of our shows, like we make sure it's diverse and inclusive to all. And you know I'm gonna just kind of dive into something really quick because I think it's important that it's spoken of. And I didn't plan on speaking about it, but I was kind of just looking at something that was highlighting Ahmaud Arbery's case and some new information that came out about that. And I'm a runner, so last year, that happening in the beginning of the year was very like heavy for me and hard. And Eric Garner was also my cousin. So that's also a very personal connection with what happened to Ahmad, and also being, especially with police brutality hitting so close to home. It just hit me hard, like as a runner and also someone who's experienced things. But what really I just want to speak about, what personally resonated with me, is the new information that came out was about the people that were involved in his murder. They were pretty much admitting um, what had happened. And it was a total different story when lawyers got into play, because now this footage is coming from the cam that the officers were wearing that day. And we saw so much injustice this year, during the middle of a pandemic, this past year, because we're going to leave that in the past. Um, but we've seen so much go on even in the midst of a pandemic, and it's a lot of things were staring us in our face. And the biggest thing I just want to know, I want everybody that's with us this evening to know, is that what me and Devin really want to do is just spread a lot of love. So this is a place where we're always, some of the things that we might talk about might be hard. And, we want to thank the people that share their real stories, especially, being vulnerable with an audience that, they're not familiar with. Especially like now we have the opportunity to have people all over our country with us on our shows, doing them virtually. But it's just, I want us to all work together, to really make this place what it should be, this world that we live in. Like, I want us all to think about the things that we can all do and the decisions that we all can make daily to make this world a better place. Because I think that, sometimes we're relying on our government and a system that, hasn't treated everyone equally. But one thing I know, if you're in this space with us, like, you really want to hear people's stories. You want to hear different perspectives. And I think it's important that I just mentioned, the work that we can all do by building this community. And it's not like we all have to stay connected after this event, even though it would be beautiful if we could keep some connections. But I want us all to take a responsibility with us when we leave this evening, to be the best versions of ourselves this year and bring the best energy that we could bring to each other and people. Because that's one thing that I really lost, without, I'm an educator and not going to school every day, is the energy that I would feed off of from the young kids that I work with daily. And, with all of us missing that kind of energy that we used to receive, I just think it's important that we really take care of self, take care of our families, and impact the people that we're capable and around, that we have access to, bring some joy into their lives. And I just want to say, like, Devan has become one of my best friends. And, he highlighted me on his, what is it? Best Friend Friday? What's the
Friendship Fridays, yeah.
Friendship Fridays. And, I just wanted to speak on that real quick because that's important. It made me feel so good, the things that he said about me, even though I know, we have we communicate a lot. So I know how he feels about me, but, just seeing that post and him taking the time out to highlight a different friend and the things that they bring to his life each Friday is just so important. So, that's just throwing an idea out there of something you might be able to do on your own, or come up with something that resonates with you, an idea. And, I really just want to say, I was in our room before we started letting people in. And it's the first time I was getting to know our cast and our host, Dawn. And I just want to say, I already feel her energy. And I'm just so excited for what she's about to bring this evening. And I'm going to pass it over to her.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for what a beautiful, wonderful intro. And hello, thank you everybody for coming today on a Saturday, the first Saturday of 2021. Hi, Nina, I see you waving. How you doing? Hey, Lamar. Hey, buddy. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I am so excited to be bringing and collaborating with Devan and Jason on this very first show of 2021. So just first of all, just give yourselves like a round of applause for like being here, for being present, for supporting awesome storytelling in 2021. You can take yourselves off of mute for a second. That's all good. Take yourselves off of mute. Do a little whoop whoop, a little hotter, a little holler. There we go. There we go. There we go. I truly believe that 2021 is going to be something spectacular, something truly, truly spectacular. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dawn Fraser. I have been a storytelling coach for about the past decade. I'd love to know who here has heard of The Moth. Like either wave your hand. Anyone not heard of The Moth? You don't have to be shy. Nobody? Okay, Laura, I see you got a thumbs up. All right, cool. And somebody else put a thumbs up over here. Okay, cool. So, and Bambi, I see you. All right, cool. So I just want to talk a little bit about like, what is The Moth? What is storytelling? What are ideas? What is TED? To kind of like give you a little bit of context, like how we even got to where we're at before we jump into today's amazing, fabulous storytellers. So for those of you who don't know, The Moth is an organization that's based out of New York City. People get up and they tell true stories live on stages around the world. And for about the past 10 years, I've been both coaching people to tell these stories on stages, and I've been hosting shows. So about 8 years ago, I created a show, called Barbershop Stories. Barbershop Stories was my rendition, Jason and Devin, of bringing more people into the mix in terms of communities of color and women, seeing like how we can all kind of connect each other. And the main idea, my main premise has always been that stories is one of the major vehicles that binds us together. And in Barbershop Stories, I didn't care if you were Black, if you're white, Latino, like unable to, articulate yourself, nonverbal. It didn't really matter. The whole premise was having people that had some type of stories that binded us together. And from putting on the show and from working with the Moth, I realized that there's a lot of people, like every single person here today has a story. Undeniably, every living being has a story. And then there's some of us who want to be able to do something with that story. We want to be able to inspire change, or we want to be able to like tell people about like something new that you might be able to think about that we've learned from our experiences. And so really quickly, to give you a quick snapshot, in my case, I have a twin brother. His name is Dwayne. My name is Dawn and Dwayne, and my twin brother was born with Down syndrome. So technically we are about 1 in a million. And I wanted to share an experience that I thought I knew what it meant to be equal. I really thought that, like I'm 1 in a million people who have a twin with Down syndrome. I would love to be able to share with people what I know about this concept of equality from what I learned from my parents. But that the idea about how do I articulate equality and what it means came from a story. It came from starting with a story. It started with an experience. So this past year, I decided that instead of just showing others just how to tell their stories, I want to work with them to tell stories that are going to inspire change. Stories that people can take to the stages of TED, which is another organization similar to Moth, but instead of just sharing the story as you do with Moth, with TED, it's all about the idea worth spreading. And I was very honored and blessed to bring in 5 participants to our very first Ideas That Ignite cohort. So that included Devan Sandiford, Regina Stoops, Christina Chiu, Nelly Nieblas, and Megan Henry. So today, our plan was to have all 5 of our participants share their stories. We have a little bit of a snafu. One of our storytellers is pretty ill. And the other one, unfortunately, lost her father to COVID yesterday. So we are all in mourning. I've been pretty upset actually, because the person that did lose her father, I've known her for quite some time. And she's also had some other challenging difficulties in her own life. I did see her pop up today. I don't know if she is going to be willing or able to share a story. But I know. Thank you, Jessica. You can probably see that my eyes are like just tearing up just talking about it. But we do have 3 amazing storytellers. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk first about what is that story? What is that story that ignited something inside of them? Something inside of them that said, you know what? This isn't only a story, but this is going to turn into an idea for the rest of the world to uplift their spirits, to understand something. So I've spoken enough. I'm a little bit of a rambler. Sorry about that, but I did want to give you some context. So without any further ado, I wanted to give you a heads up that each story will be about 5 to 8 minutes. And then afterwards, we'll go back to our storytellers and ask them, what's the idea? What's the idea that you want to be able to translate to the stages of TED? And each one of you are here for that journey. So thank you so much again for being here. Y'all ready to get this kicked off? Yeah? All right. I see you, Aaron, doing some clapping. All right. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge virtual welcome for our very first storyteller. You all might already know him if you've ever been to an Unreeling storytelling show. Take yourselves off of mute for a quick second. Give a warm round of applause for the one and only Devan Sandiford.
Woo! Woo!
Woo-hoo! Go, Devin!
Yeah.
Go, Devin.
Thank you.
That's my brother. Let's go, Devin.
That's my brother. He used to chair that everywhere
I was. It was the greatest. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So just about a year ago, I was in my younger son's kindergarten classroom, and I was walking to the front of the classroom, and 23 sets of little eyes were like looking up at me as I was like walking to go share a story with their class, and I was just terrified. I wasn't terrified because I was scared of kids. I actually love kids. I knew that I wanted to be a parent since I was like 10 years old. And so I wasn't scared about the kids or really the story. I do get nervous every time I share a story. But the reason I was nervous and terrified was the particular story that I had to share. See, my son's kindergarten classroom, they had a personal storytelling unit. And they had asked if any of the parents would want to come in and share a story. And I was like, oh, absolutely. Like, I've been sharing stories on the stage around New York City. I'm definitely going to go in and share some stories and really get these kids excited about sharing stories. And I was really excited to go until I asked my son, made the worst mistake, asking my 5-year-old what story he wanted me to tell. And he looked up at me in our home and he's like, I want you to tell the kissing story. And I was like, oh, Sydney, that's the one story I don't want to tell. And that particular story I didn't want to tell, I'd actually told that story at the Moth before. And when I had gone to the Moth, it's a story about when I was in first grade. I was 6 years old and I'd started going to this predominantly white school. And on our playground, all the girls would chase around the boys trying to catch and kiss them. And none of the girls would actually try and catch or kiss me. And I thought I was playing the games for weeks. And I actually realized that not only were they not chasing me, but that they were actually afraid to touch me. And they looked at me like I was kind of like a monster, disgusting. And so I like flipped the game around where I would start chasing them and defending the boys. And I had told this story at the Moth. And I thought I was ready to tell it when I went there. But as I was there sharing this story about when I was 6 years old, I could see like all the people in the audience in this intimate space in Manhattan looking back at me. And I could see like they had like a lot of pity in their eyes. And it felt like even more scarring again, just to like feel this amount of pity coming back. So I was like, I don't want to tell this story again. So I had told my son in his bedroom, no, I'm not going to tell that story. And my wife is Indonesian and I'm Black. And so he's got like this perfect golden brown skin. He's got curly hair. Everybody tells us he looks like John Legend. And so like, as soon as I told him like, no, I'm not going to tell that story, I see like his shoulders slump and his head like droops down and like tears start to well up in his eyes. And I'm like, this cannot be that big of a deal. But he's like my little baby and like, he's never usually upset. He's the one in our house that like jokes and is always happy. So I'm like, I gave in. I'm like, fine, I'll tell that story. And so like on that day when I had been in his kindergarten classroom walking to the front, I was terrified because I'm like, I don't want to have to be vulnerable in front of these kids. And I don't want to like plant this idea of Blackness in their heads. And as I was walking up and preparing for the story, I kind of just decided that instead of sharing the full story, what I would do would be just like, I'd be really clever and I would pull out all the race elements of the story. I wouldn't tell them that I went to a predominantly white school. I wouldn't bring up race at all. I would just tell the story as if it was a game on the playground and the girls didn't kiss me. And that's what I did. My son got to sit next to me and I told the whole story. And I got to the end and I'm like, yes, I did it. I shared this story. I didn't feel vulnerable. I didn't feel bad at all. And I thought I was done. And the teachers gave the kids opportunity to ask 3 questions. The first 2 questions I can never remember, but the third question I will never forget. This little voice came and like asked the question, why didn't the girls kiss you like the rest of the boys? And I'm like, oh, this was what I was avoiding. And I paused and I like tried to delay by just saying like, that is a very good question. And I'm like looking around the room to the teachers, hoping that they'll rescue me because they go to this, my sons go to this really great school where they talk about diversity and inclusion. It's like a part of everyday life. They talk about it all the time. And so I was kind of looking around hoping somebody would rescue me, but I knew that like they asked me the question. And so I thought like, maybe I could like just say that I don't know, because the girls on the playground had actually never said it's because you're Black. So I could just say like, I honestly don't know what they're thinking. And that would have been mostly the truth. And as I'm thinking about what I say, we'll say all of a sudden there's this like 6-year-old boy, white, milky skin. He's like, it's because he's Black. And he just shouts it out for the whole class. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like he didn't have any malice in his voice. He wasn't like angry. He wasn't like hating Black people, but he just objectively knew the truth. And when he shouted it out, it was like there was no hiding from it. And I was like, yes, that is absolutely the truth. And that's what happened. And I explained to them that I went to a predominantly white school and that my school wasn't like their school where they talked about race and things like that. And it was just like many years earlier. But that moment, as I was answering his question, just reminded me about how kids can just inherently know the truth about things and they're not running from it the same way adults would. And so after I answered that question, I looked to the teacher and she like gave me a nod and it was like, now you're done with your story. And as I left the classroom, I thought to myself, like, the first time I told the story at the Moth, I kind of messed it up because I told it from a place of like still being hurt, and it then passed the hurt to the people. And then when I told it at my son's kindergarten classroom, I had like pulled out all of these elements of the truth. And like, I didn't think about how that would affect my son, him having heard the story many times and me pulling out. Now he's probably wondering in his head, like, is that something that we do? And I didn't think about how that would harm him. And so I didn't want to leave it there. I was actually teaching a storytelling workshop to kindergartners, to fifth graders at the school. So a week later, I found the principal in the hallway and I asked her, like, is it okay if I share this story? It has race. I'm going to share I wanted to share the entire thing. And what she told me kind of became the compass for how I live my life going forward. And she told me that we never withhold the truth from the children. And I said, I knew that was true. And I had told my own children that was the case, but I'd never thought about telling other people's children that. And so she told me, but make sure when you go in and you tell the story that you give them a chance to just open up and ask questions at the end. And so I went into this workshop and, it's kindergartners to fifth graders. So it's like a wide range of kids. I'm like, I don't know who's going to get it, but I'm just going to share this whole story, the whole vulnerable story. And I went up and the classroom is set up inside the art room. So they have these long tables. We set it up like a little stage with the kids in their seats. And usually they'll tell stories to me or to the rest of their classroom. And this particular day, I started off telling the story. I told the whole thing, was completely vulnerable. And it felt good to just share the story and not from a place of hurt, but just from a place of like, this is an honest story. And at the end, I asked, does anybody have any questions? And sure enough, 6 hands just like shoot up. And I'm like, oh boy, like what are the questions gonna be? And I looked to one of the younger kids in the front and he looks up at me and he's got his like milky skin. He's got his hair longer on one side. And he looks up at me and he says, what I hear in that story is a lot of pain. And it reminds me of the time when I was going to play with my friends and they all got into a circle and excluded me from the circle. And I was so sad and I felt alone. And I was like, wow, this little 6 or 7-year-old kid completely understands how I feel. And it was like one of the first times I had felt so deeply seen. And sure enough, as I called the rest of the 5 hands, one after another, they told stories about how they had been excluded from groups. And maybe one because they were a girl, and one was because of the hairstyle, and one was because of another reason. But we were all like understanding each other and connecting based off of like being excluded. And it was a moment for me that I was able to realize that when people talk about, I can't imagine how you would feel. And I after hearing these kids tell me their stories, I knew that that was not something that was real. It was just something that people say to feel comfortable, because we can imagine all types of things. We can imagine little aliens in movies and getting emotionally connected to people who are not even real people. We can imagine souls coming out of the bodies and going into the afterlife and being moved by those stories. And so it was a moment that I was able to realize that we can all imagine each other's things if we're willing to be just as vulnerable as the person sharing. And it brought up the moment for me. I had been sending out stories to editors, and one of the editors had come back to me, it's accepted the piece. And one of the things she had said though, was that sometimes we have to cut some things. And I knew that to be true in editing. But the thing she had said was that sometimes there are truths that seem unbelievable. And sometimes we have to cut the truth if it doesn't seem real. And having had this moment, I could say that I could not disagree with that anymore, because anytime that we cut out the truths that seem unbelievable, it provides an opportunity for lies that seem believable to sneak in. And I had gone to my son's classroom and I thought I would just pull out these little things. It won't be a big deal. But actually, I was perpetuating the lie by lying, by removing things that should have been in the story. I should have left the truth in and I had pulled it out. And so going forward, I decided I would use the compass of always telling the truth, even if it seemed unbelievable. Thank you.
Go ahead, take yourselves off of mute. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the one and only Devan Sandiford.
Thank you.
Yes.
So good.
Great job.
Tell the truth.
Beautiful. Great job as always, Devin.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Indeed, indeed. Whew, wow, to tell the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what 2021 is about. We're not holding back. We're not holding back. We're coming with our full selves. We're coming with our full truths, our full honesty, right? This line that you said, Devin, is just like sticking with me. Never withhold from the truth. It's just like, it's one of those tweets. I feel like I should just kind of like start keeping a track of them, because I know that these are going to start lining up pretty soon. But it's so true, right? I when you were talking, it reminds me of like another saying that I've learned from storytelling. And a lot of times people ask me like, okay, well, like, how do we know like if a story is too vulnerable? How do we know if a story is ready to be shared? How much should I share? And one of the things I always lean back on is the saying that we share stories from our scars, not our wounds. We share stories from our scars, not our wounds. Meaning a wound is something that's fresh, it's open. If Devin tried to tell the story about the girls not kissing him a month after it happened, it wouldn't have come across the same way as it would now, because now it's healed. It's a scar. He can look back on that experience and say, this is the time that didn't feel good, but there's a lesson from it. Anderson, that's your son? I know you're proud. I know you are proud. Devin has just been a rock star for the entire Ideas That Ignite community. And as you can see from everything that's going on here. So I know you have mad props. Shout out to Devin's family. But yeah, so keep that in mind, y'all. Share your truths, share them from your scars, not your wounds. And I'm sure that your life is just going to be changed from the interactions that you have from one another. So another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Devin. Yay. All right. Coming up next to our virtual stage. And actually I have a quick question before we go. Are people able to pin the speaker? Are we able to pin the speaker so that everybody sees the speaker full view? Okay, great. So yeah. Excellent, thank you. Just wanted to double check. So coming up next to our virtual stage, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one and only, the comedic, the awesome, the amazing Regina Stoops.
Hang on, Dawn. I thought we were going to Christina, so I'm getting myself set up here, everybody.
Did I mess up the order?
We can roll with this. This is not a problem, Dawn.
Okay,
not
cool.
At all.
This is how we roll, y'all. This is how we roll.
I don't have the story done now. It wasn't going to be done in 8 minutes, so it's all right. It's okay.
Awesome.
Oh, it's a very exciting day. It's Christmas break. Kids are out of school, and we are at the park. My mission on this day at the park is to burn off the collective energy of my 3 sons, 7, 6, and 4. And their excitement is due to the fact that today is the day we get to fly my oldest son, Ryan's brand new shiny red remote control helicopter. Ryan loves all things that fly, especially if there's propeller blades involved. And it's not so much that he likes to actually fly them himself, but he likes to watch them take off and go off into the sky and circle around. So today, here we are. And I don't know if any of you have ever flown a helicopter or a remote control helicopter, either one. They're very difficult to fly, let me just say. And it took me a while to figure it out, but eventually I got there and I figured out the trim and the balance and the up and the down and the left and the right and the wind and what direction it was coming from. And I was flying that thing around and figured out how to bring it down for a landing and not just cut the throttle and have it plummet from the sky. So I'm flying it around the grassy field and the kids are chasing it all around. And so my plan to wear them out is working out really well. And Ryan's younger brother, Jack, the 6-year-old, he begs me for a turn. And for about the 100th time, he begs me again. And finally, in a moment of mother madness, I give in and I say yes. So here he goes, he's flying in and he's doing a pretty good job. You know, he's being cautious and it's going up and high and high. And I'm like, okay, bring it down, higher, higher, Jack, bring it down, higher, higher. But at this point, it's like in the jet stream. And I don't want to yell at him because I don't want to freak him out, but I want to yell at him because I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like, Jack, bring the helicopter down. And he freezes on full throttle and flies it right into a tree about 100 feet up. And this is a tree, this is a huge tree. This is a tree that's been there for a long time and has eaten many balls, airplanes, small children, and now a shiny red remote control helicopter. Ryan goes into an epic meltdown. He is inconsolable. He is crying and he's screaming and he's kicking the tree and he's beating at it with his little fists. And he's saying, it's too high, it's too high, it's too high. And I go up and I grab him before he can bloody his knuckles anymore. And I squeeze him really tight because this is what I do to try to calm him down. And I squeeze him and I squeeze him. And I look over at Jack and he is sad. And I'm trying not to be mad at this moment. It's not his fault. I mean, technically it is his fault, but he's 6 years old. Like, how did I think that was going to end? Well, so I'm trying not to be angry, but I'm really angry because I'm just frustrated and I don't know what to do. It's December, it's getting cold, it's getting dark. I'm at the park with 3 kids, one of whom is having a meltdown, and the other 2 I need to keep an eye on. And there's no bathroom at this park, and I'm low on snacks. So I'm almost frozen. I don't know what to do to solve this. But finally, I call the city. I call the Parks and Rec department and see if maybe they have like a bucket truck that they could come and be my savior. But it's after 5 o'clock. And so maintenance department is closed. Meanwhile, it's getting darker and darker and I can just see the red light on the helicopter, the top of the tree, blinking, blinking, like calling to us, like I'm right here, I'm right here, I'm right here. And I'm still just don't know what to do. So finally, I think the fire department. I'll call the fire department. I mean, right? They have ladders. This is what the fire department does. I mean, maybe not exactly this, but maybe, this will fall into that cat in a tree category and they'll come and help me out. So I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm embarrassed, but I call the non-emergency number. I'm like, hello, hi, yeah. So I know you have a lot more important things to do. But I'm hoping you might be able to help me because my son's helicopter is stuck way up in a tree at Del Prado Park. And I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what to do. And he's very upset. And then as I'm trying not to lose it completely, I stop and I pause, take a deep breath. And I say, he has autism and he's really, really losing it. I totally understand, says the voice at the other end. My daughter has autism. I get it. I totally get it. I'm going to talk to my captain. I'm going to see what I can do. And 10 minutes later, the cavalry arrives on a big red fire truck led by firefighter Reggie, who managed to convince his captain and all of his firefighter friends to come over to save the helicopter. Firefighter Reggie gets off, climbs down from the truck, heads over to the ladder because I find out that the bucket truck, the actual bucket truck that would have just been perfect for this particular rescue, is actually out on a call, probably a real call. So they had to come over in the standard issue truck that has the standard issue ladder, which is a tall ladder, but not tall enough because Reggie climbs all the way up and he reaches way out and the blinking red light is just out of his reach. The rest of the firefighters are standing around and it seems like they're almost a little bit embarrassed. Like I can see, word bubbles above their heads. It's as if they're saying, I cannot believe that he is doing this. And I cannot believe he convinced us to come along on this mission. Well, firefighter Reggie is a man on a mission and he has a lot of experience, maybe not with this exact situation, but he's got a bag of tricks. So he climbs back down the ladder, goes over to the truck, gets out a pole, really long pole. It's got this hook on the end of it. And he climbs back up the ladder all the way to the top rung, to the one that probably says, do not stand on this rung. And he stands on that rung and he reaches out with that pole with the hook and he snags the helicopter. And he slowly brings it back in, and the tree doesn't want to give it up. The branches are still catching on the blades. The tree's fighting all the way, but he brings it in and he gets it in his hands. And we watch as the blinking light and Reggie descend back down the ladder, back to the ground. There's like a polite smattering of applause, like golf clapping from the crowd of people that have surrounded the fire truck, thinking that it was going to be something really exciting, but now realizing it's just a helicopter rescue, but wanting to be supportive nonetheless. So Ryan has been watching this whole thing unfold, and very, very quietly. And Reggie walks over, puts the helicopter in his hands, and he smiles finally. And he leans into firefighter Reggie. And I prompt him, and Ryan whispers, "Thank you." And I don't know who's more excited. I snap a picture because, now I can fill in that first time I had to call the fire truck page in the baby book. So I don't know who's more excited, firefighter Reggie, Ryan, or me. But I do know that the rescue wouldn't have happened at all if I hadn't been willing to be vulnerable, be willing to take that deep breath and to say, my son has autism. And if firefighter Reggie hadn't been willing to do the same and say the same about his daughter, as if it was the most normal, everyday occurrence, because it was, and because it is. My son has autism. Thank you.
Take yourselves off the mute, ladies and gentlemen. That was Regina Stoops.
Nice, Regina.
Bravo.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Well done.
Oh my God, that was so good.
Ah,
Thank you.
gosh, y'all just
Nina,
trying to make me cry this year, aren't you? Just trying.
beautiful.
Oh, I totally agree, Mary. I was actually looking over at your face a couple of times, Mary, because you have the best expressions as you were listening to Regina's story. It's just a small act that can make a world of a difference, Ironically, Regina, your story reminds me of the time that I accidentally killed my best friend's hamster. And as it was dying, I went to call 911 in New York City, which, is probably not gonna go over very well. I called and then I was like, I'm calling over an animal that's dying in my bedroom. They're gonna laugh at my ass. I just gotta go. So I instead had to run over to Fort Greene Park and try and see if I can just bury it. Not as intense of a story, but still it reminded me of just moments where, we could use a little help. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with you after when we go to the idea and hearing a little bit more about Reggie, hearing a little bit more about your idea and how this translates into like what we could do or what we can say or act upon as a result of, these kind of experiences. So I'm really looking forward to that. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Regina. Yay, I love this. I love this. So just to give everybody a quick heads up, we will have a fourth storyteller. Nelly is here and she does want to be able to share with all of you her story. So after Christina, we'll be having our fourth storyteller, Nelly. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause for our third storyteller for the day, Miss Beautiful Christina Chiu.
Hi. So my parents and my family moved from the Bronx when I was around 6 to a suburb outside of New York City. It was a pretty affluent suburb. And when I got there, I realized for the first time that it was probably not so great to be Asian. And the reason I felt this was because, well, I was one of the few Asian kids there, but also some of the kids, would play soccer and some of the kids would jump rope. But then some of the kids took a lot of time to remind me that I was different. And they would say things like, oh, Chinese, Japanese dirty knees. And of course, I would be the one to go home and try and scrub my knees. So like I had I just did not know what was going on. And they would say, go back where you came from. And of course, I'm like, do you mean the Bronx? Like it was so confusing. So I had this idea about being Asian and it wasn't a good one. And I guess I grew up thinking like, knowing that I wasn't the standard of beauty and you know what, I would never be. And I think that kind of thing just kind of lives with you. And by the time I got into high school, I had a cousin who got her eyes done. And for those of you who don't know, a lot of Asians will get like an epicanthic fold because they want to have larger looking eyes and a fold. And so basically it's like a scar. And so my sister, of course, is like totally grossed out. She's like disgusted that my cousin would do such a thing. And, like in a certain way, intellectually anyway, I was pretty not great with it either. But then I swear, if someone had said, you know what? You got a new nose, I would have been like, really? One with a bridge? Like, really? One that's not flat? Like, I would have been there. And, it was kind of interesting because, you'd always hear people say, you should love who you are, right? And I'd always wonder what that meant. Like, how do you do that? Like, that's like impossible. Like, what do you mean? Like, how do you go there, right? So I would like J. Crew myself, right? If I couldn't be it, then at least I could dress it and act it and, go as far as I could, right? So by college, I'm like all J. Crewed out and I'm like talking the talk and I have my new friends, I'm a freshman and we're all excited. We go to a party and we're all drinking and someone says, chink. And I'm the only Chinese person there, so I know it's directed at me. And I'm like, what? Right? So I leave the party and I go back to my dorm and I'm trying to sort out what happened, what is going on here. And I sit down at my desk and I start to write. And this amazing thing happens. It's like I'm there, but like I'm not there. It's like I sit down and like hours go by and I've transcended time or something. It's like I'm so absorbed and passionate and my heart is there and my words are there and they matter. Of course, I send this off to the college paper and the next thing I know, the next day it's on the front cover and people are talking about it and it ends up starting a year-long discussion about race and racism. What's racism? So I end up becoming a writer, obviously. I become absolutely addicted because when I'm in this space, I feel absolutely powerful. I feel beautiful. I feel like nothing can bring me down, right? I'm just so in it. So I go on to write a book called Troublemaker and Other Saints. It's a collection of stories. And it's about stereotypes and what it's like to be jammed into a shape that actually doesn't suit you. And then I start my next novel, and it's about a woman who goes into the fashion industry, and it's about beauty and how this Asian American woman, this Chinese American woman, navigates the intersections of race and gender, and all the questions I've ever had about beauty, I'm dealing with in this book. And of course, my book launches during COVID, right? I've spent like 14 years writing this book and it launches during COVID. But you know what? Worse things could happen, right? Like there are horrible things happening. I live in New York City. It's like the epicenter of the epidemic. We're losing people like constantly to this virus. I know I need to wear a mask, but very early on in the epidemic, a woman who's in Midtown gets attacked for wearing a mask because she's Asian. And I don't feel so safe anymore. I'm in New York City, one of the most diverse cities in the universe, and for the first time ever, I don't feel safe. And I don't want to put on that mask, and I resist wearing it. But by mid-April, New York City has lost maybe 10,000 residents to COVID. It's like no joke. And I'm like, I need to protect my family, but what am I gonna, if I wear a mask, I'll get attacked. If I don't wear a mask, I'll give my family COVID. It's like, what? That's crazy. So I make this decision. I think about why this is happening, right? Why am I resistant? I talked to a friend and I'm like, I'm afraid to wear a mask. Are you? And she's Asian American also. And she's like, yes. And she says, did you hear about that incident with that woman? And I'm like, oh my God. And we realized we're not the only ones who are scared. So when I was doing research on my book Beauty, I started shoemaking because, I want to learn about designing and all that stuff. And I started to fall in love with shoemaking, a lot like I fell in love with writing. I would just sit down and 10 o'clock, I'm working on it. And I look up at the clock, it's like 3 o'clock, I've forgotten my kids. That's how much I love it. That's how passionately I feel about it. Right. And the COVID experience is so strange to me because anti-Asian sentiment's on the rise. And, the president is going on about how it's a Chinese virus and it's a China virus and Kung flu. It's like so funny, right? No, it's like so funny, right? So I decide I need to wear a mask. And the way I'm going to do it is like this. When I was shoemaking, I made a pair of boots out of my favorite fabric. It's a Mary Mako fabric. It's white and it has these huge red flowers. And the flowers are like vibrant and alive and cheerful. And that's me, right? That is me. So I make myself a face mask. The next day, I'm on my way to the market. I cross paths with this woman and she pauses and there's that moment, right? I'm like, it can go either way, right? And she says, I love your mask. It's beautiful. And I'm like, it totally crystallizes in my mind. I'm like, that's right. Of course it's beautiful. I made it. I am it. I am that, right? And so much about beauty for me, I realize, is about being in that place, those moments when things are just so beautiful that time becomes irrelevant. And you know what? When I'm in those spaces, it doesn't matter if someone says something, like no one can take that away. It's there. And I just feel like it's the moment when you connect with yourself that's what they're talking about. When people say you should love yourself, it's there. Everyone has it. It's that moment when you feel so passionate and beautiful, and you are. Thank you.
Yes. Pick yourselves up with me. A round of applause for Christina, ladies and gentlemen.
Tremendous.
Stop.
Amazing. I saw your little heart, Jessica. I can't see your face, but I saw your heart and your claps, and we appreciate you and everybody else who has been showing so much support for our storytellers. Amazing, Christina. I do hope that we do get to see this mask. Perhaps you have it handy.
Sorry, I do not have it handy, but I will have it on my site. So if anyone wants to go there, I'll put it up.
Also have to say Christina made 40 of these masks for women at a shelter for women returning from prison. She handmade 40 masks for them, of these beautiful masks.
And how was this not part of the story? how we're just now randomly hearing this tidbit from Jessica.
Christina
Amazing.
is so giving and generous. It's incredible. So thank you for that, Christina.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, Christina, when you were sharing your story, it's so true. The conflict, the catch-22 of wearing a mask and feeling like, am I going to be targeted or feeling like an other, or am I going to wear this mask and protect my family? And it shouldn't have to be. It shouldn't have to be that, right? I mean, I remember when I first, when this whole pandemic first started, it was around the same time as Jason was mentioning earlier about Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And so I went out and I couldn't find a mask because I didn't know where to go, but I just so happened to find this place in the Best Buy parking lot that were just like all masks. I was like, this is perfect. And so I found a Black Lives Matter mask. And at first I was really kind of nervous about, I mean, it's obvious, people, come on, like, look at me, I'm Black, it's obvious. That ain't gonna change. But some people feel kind of weird sometimes about Black Lives Matter. And sometimes I didn't know, like, should I be putting this out there despite the obvious? And when I did, I was actually really surprised at the people who were like, you know what, I see you. You know what, I respect you. Thank you. And then I was also surprised to see the number of not Black people who were wearing Black Lives Matter. And that's when it really started to show that we're all connected. We're all trying to protect ourselves. We're all trying to be safe. There's no need to hate on one another for no reason whatsoever. Be safe, cover up, show your beauty, because it's from the inside. So such a touching story. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the one and only Christina. And I will be talking about her book in a moment, but we'll be getting to that at the second half of today's show. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, can you please give a huge, warm, loving round of applause for our fourth storyteller for today, the one and only, the beautiful, the charming, amazingly talented Nelly Nieblas.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. And here we go. So I have to tell you a little bit of my father. He was the youngest of 4 brothers and sisters and emigrated here when he was 25 years old. And he is a person who doesn't mince words. So when I was 5 years old, actually 7 years old, and was refusing to do my homework, he took me into his workshop and he said, "So I hear you don't want to do your homework." And of course, I was a rebellious little kid, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do my homework. It's hard, and it's hard for me to understand it." And he was working on making gold chains like the ones that rappers wear around their necks from hard wire and gold loops. So his hands would hold the wire and the gold loops and hinge them together. As a result of holding them tight, his hands would become bruised and calloused. He's like, "Look at your beautiful hands." I would look down. They were beautiful, pink and plump. He's like, "Look at mine." And I would look at his. They were bleeding, calloused, and they weren't looking nice at all. He's like, "You know what, Nelly? You were given a beautiful mind and maybe not a perfect body. I was born with cerebral palsy, so my legs were affected and I couldn't walk as well as everyone else. But to him, that didn't matter. My brother and I were just the same and equally as capable as any other 2 brothers and sisters. We got the same lecture. If you want to succeed in life, you get an education and you keep those beautiful hands, no matter what. Okay? So God gave you a not so good body, but he gave you a damn good brain. Understand me? And that was enough for me to get my act straight. Trust me, the look on his face was enough for me to be afraid of getting bad grades. So every single day, I remember that speech. He came across the border and worked really hard at odd jobs every day. I remembered his manual labor and his hands. And I kept struggling. I couldn't understand what was going on. I would fall behind, and I kept asking teachers for tutoring. In high school, I would arrive at 6 in the morning to get tutoring to be able to learn how to read and write. Something was going on. I didn't know what it was. We got the same lecture, my brother and I, but something was going on. He was the genius as a child, but something happened when he became a teenager. He made different choices. I was motivated to go to school. I was motivated to pursue my dreams in honor of myself, my family, and my father. But the pressure of being a successful kid and growing up in a hard neighborhood developed our grit. But he lacked the vision. The pressure was too much. The choice he made was to join a gang. As I was trying to learn to read and write, he made the choice to join a gang. As I improved my grades, he became the leader of his local gang. He became the top recruiter and the top drug distributor. As I advanced in my grades and became, I would say, a decent pupil, my dad would say a star pupil, because, everything has to be the best for the Nieblases. He started to get into drugs. The more I envisioned myself in college and heard stories about UCLA and USC, because that's when you grow up in LA, those are the two big ones you have to apply to. I still remember my PE teachers in high school telling me, you have to go to UCLA or USC. They would even dress up as mascots. And that in itself was enough motivation to me visualizing myself to that end. I was really excited. I knew I was going to do it, but I still kept going to the tutoring sessions. My brother was still asleep at night. Still asleep at 7 in the morning from a night of partying and doing vandalism. I was tutoring 7 in the morning, waiting for the bell to ring to start my math class. I remember as a big sister telling him, come on, you and I are a team, remember? You can't leave us. We have to do this together. We're the Nieblas team. But he was lost. He kept saying, you don't know what it's like to be a male, and you don't know what it's like to struggle. You have people helping you because you're different. He was right. I didn't know what it was like to be a male and to struggle in East LA. But I did know what it was like to struggle with dyslexia and a physical disability. And I did know what I wanted. I wanted to go to college above all. I took the SATs. Oh, I scored a 900. No, ladies and gentlemen, not a 900 in one section, 900 overall. So that determined my future. I went to community college. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 22. I aced all my classes, but couldn't pass the damn statistics class to get to UCLA. But I was determined. I said, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself to USC. So I took all honors classes, did intense tutoring again, kept talking to my brother as he kept using drugs and kept going to prison. He said, Nelly, if you don't make it, then our family won't be proud. So you better start making it. I know I'm messing up, but I don't know how to change. You know how to do this. You can see yourself there. I can't. I love my brother and I love his heart. I just kept remembering my father saying, if your brother can't do it, you can. Do it for all of us. So it is in his honor that when I got that acceptance letter to USC, I ran to my father, hands shaking, and he said, Dad, look, I got into USC, little did I know that a week later, he took that very same acceptance letter and showed it to his boss. He was a janitor down the block from USC at the Figueroa building down the street. He said, "My daughter is going to be a USC graduate, and this is her acceptance letter." She had the vision, she made the choice, and she's she's our pride. The one thing I know is that even when life gives you a lot of grit, you have to make the choices and have the vision to move forward. And it is because of his constant love and constant vision for me to move forward and be who I am that I am here today. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the one and only Nelly Nieblas. Wow. Irene, I saw you like wiping away the tears, and I feel you.
Nelly.
I feel you. And yes, Lamar, I saw you shaking your head as Nelly was sharing his story. I see and appreciate so much love and attention for our storytellers. And Nelly, you know, I know that you have the vision of like a sharpshooter. You are like on target. Like when you say you want to do something, you do it, like regardless of circumstances. When you see something happening, you execute. And I have been in awe of you since we've met, which was now more than 20 years ago, which is kind of scary to me because I'm getting a lot older. And to even think that I've known somebody for 20 years is like, what? But yes, it's true, yo. It's true. But I just wanted to say thank you for first sharing your story. I know it's been a really challenging season for you. And
there was a lot more to that story, but you know, I tried my best today.
I know you did, honey. I know you did. Devan and I wanted to bring up a picture of your father, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as many of you know, Nelly's father passed yesterday, and she sent us these pictures of him and her together. This one from their house, and the second one, the two of them together. And you know, they say in storytelling that when you say somebody's name of somebody who has passed, that their memory, their legacy lives on forever and ever and ever. Can you remind me of your father's full name?
Manuel Nieblas.
Manuel Nieblas.
Manuel Nieblas.
Manuel Nieblas, yes. So, you know, out of respect for what has just happened, we want to share his name with this entire community. But I'd also love for just a moment to open the floor to anybody who has lost anybody during any time in your life. It doesn't have to be during COVID. Can we just go ahead and acknowledge those who have passed on, who have played a part in our lives and our memories and our legacies? I'll start off with my own father. His name was Winston Fraser. I lost him when I was about 20. Charles Hall, I see from Jessica in the chat. Douglas Hall as well.
I'll share real quick. I want to say my cousin Emery, that was Eric Garner's brother, and he was killed in the late 90s to gun violence. And I miss him a lot because I looked up to him a lot. But you know, he was living a street life, and Nelly's story just kind of really resonated with me, especially with some family members that had different circumstances and different opportunities than I had. And even with some opportunities that I was given, it was hard to make certain choices. So, you know, Nelly, I just want you to know we never met, but you're one of my heroes right now. And I'm gonna hold that to my heart. And thank you for being so brave to share what you did with us tonight.
Thank you, Jason. I'm also going to read off some of the names that people have put here in the chat, including Habib Karuba, Madeline Manchester, D. Del Drago, Miles Yitem, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Thomas Mehrel, Elsie Bourne, Tennyson Beckles, which is Anderson Sandiford's dad. So I'm assuming that's Devan's grandfather. Nina has mentioned her mother and her sister, both named Raisa. Dean Jacoby, Judith Haywood Jacoby, which are the parents of Dean Jacoby. Robin Barr, Javone Boatwright. Regina has mentioned Lev Tarshia. Tarshia, thank you. I would have stumbled over that for quite a while. In addition to Misha Tarshia, her grandfather, uncle, and many others. Lynn mentioned Rod Kister. Janet mentioned Yarrow Darby, her baby daughter. Condolences. Lisa mentioned her dad, Bert Flegel, who also passed of COVID, and then her son, John Ramsey, who was murdered in August. Irene has mentioned her friend Mary Wright, who died from COVID last year. Janet mentioned Charles Saunders. And Jessica just says, thank you for making space to recognize our losses. Yes, they're not only losses, are legacies, there are stories. They're the people who have made an impact in all of our lives. In the storytelling community, we also lost quite a few storytellers. And we're actually kind of honored that we have some of their stories on tape to pass on, not only to other storytellers, but to their family members. So if there's anything that that the passing of loved ones reminds me of, is to continue sharing stories, because once you share your story, once you own it, nobody can take that away. And you'll be amazed at how many people, I mean, look at how many people are connecting because of something that Nelly has shared, or something that Devan has shared, or something that Christina said, or something that Regina, said, right? This is the power. This is the power, ladies and gentlemen, of our stories. So what I want to do now is just kind of take a moment to see what these amazing people are thinking about in terms of what does this mean in terms of the idea that they would like to pitch to TED. Before I go on, actually, does everybody know about TED? Can you like wave your hand if you do know about TED? So most of you do. Okay, cool. I saw a thumbs up from Tali. Anybody not know about TED or what they're all about?
The TED Talks?
Yeah, the TED Talks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So just in case anybody was shy and didn't want to admit that they don't know what the hell a TED Talk is, TED Talks are essentially people from all walks of life that get up and they tell ideas worth spreading. So there's like one main TED institution, but there's also a bunch of TEDx's. So a TEDx is like a license from TED, from the main curators of TED. And so you might see a TEDx in your city, you might see a TEDx in your part of your community or part of your business. But this brand has now exploded, whereas people are now taking stories from their lives, like the stories that you just heard, and turning them into the idea. So a lot of times, like in storytelling, you might hear, the moral of my story is I learned I should always tell the truth, right? Which, in a lot of times, is an internal reflection. With TED, what we're now looking for is, what does this mean for you? What does this mean for you, the listener? Like, how can you change your life, or what impact might this have on your life? And so that's what I work with people to do. This was my own process of first becoming a storyteller and then speaking on the stages of TED, and now being, fortunate to work with celebrities like Common, celebrities like Jackie Cruz from Orange is the New Black, working with people from all walks of life, like private trainer for marketing at Google. I love the way that people are able to take their stories and translate into something that is meaningful. So I am now going to bring up each one of our storytellers one by one to talk about what is the idea. Just like, in a 1 or 2 sentence idea, one or two sentence framework, what is the main idea that you're working on that you want your audience to come away with as a result of the story? So keep in mind that the with TED, that it's story and idea. So sometimes there's data, there's facts, there's figures. So what you saw today is not going to be their TED Talk. This is not their TED Talk, okay? But this is a story that is feeding the fuel to let us understand what's the data, the statistics, the idea that we're leaning into. All right, fair? Cool. All right, let me stop talking. So I'm gonna work in somewhat reverse order. I'm gonna skip over you for a quick second, Nelly, and I'm gonna go to Regina. No, I'm sorry, Regina. Sorry, Regina. I did that again. I am going to go to Christina. I'm gonna go to Christina first and ask you, what's the idea? What is the idea that you're playing with? And what are you leaning into for your TED Talk?
So we all want to be beautiful, but I feel that if we're really honest with ourselves, not all of us actually believe we are. And I think this is particularly relevant for people of color who get dimmed, because we don't see ourselves in cisgendered ideas of beauty, and we get invisibilized, and our voices can really easily get dismissed or discounted, and not just by others, but by ourselves. And I think this is a little true for all of us. So my TED Talk is about consciously redefining beauty by sharing why and exactly how to experience it. That's it.
What? Awesome. Wow. I'm like so shocked because like that was like the most succinct, amazing, precise definition that you've given me since we started this program. That was epic. That was so great. Anything else that you want to like elaborate upon that, or anything else that you're looking to include as part of your talk?
I think that the talk is really relevant for all people, because I think beauty is a subject matter that most people struggle with, whether you're male or female, whether you're white or Black or Asian. And I think that I really hope to get this message across, because I feel that everyone actually, you hear it all the time, you're beautiful, you should know you're beautiful. But I think the mind knows one thing and the heart knows another. So my talk is really to move people into how they can actually feel it. And once you feel it, you believe it.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Awesome. And before we let you go, do you want to tell people about your book?
Beauty.
Your world-class book?
Beauty is my novel, the one I mentioned tonight, and it was the winner of the James Allen McPherson Award. And I mention that because James Allen McPherson was the first African American to win the Pulitzer. So beauty basically continues his legacy, and I am extremely proud of that.
Yes, and we are extremely proud that you are part of this crew and cannot wait to see you on TED in 2021. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Christina. And Devin just put the link for her book, I believe, in the chat, I think. Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Oh, yes, there it is. Perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent. So now, Regina, now am I back on order? Now can I bring you to the highlight to the stage?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, you can bring me up. I'm up. All right. Growing up in a town called Normal, I've had a life that feels anything but. As a gay Catholic woman living with multiple sclerosis and raising a special needs son, I've been amazed at the positive and the unexpected responses that have resulted when I've been honest and forthright about life's difficulties. Sometimes it happens in an instant, like the time when my son got his toy helicopter stuck in the tree. And although I was embarrassed to call the fire department, I was surprised and relieved and amazed when the fireman on the other end said that he understood, because he too had a child with autism. At other times, it's happened in a more subtle way, but still unexpected. The woman who was part of my special needs support group, when she told me that her opinion of same-sex marriage had changed, And it changed because she had gotten to know my family and from seeing my struggles with my son, which were very similar to her struggles with her son. And she could no longer justify the view that our family was less than her family. And what had I done to change her mind? I had just lived my life in a completely transparent way about my family and myself. And by doing so, the commonality won out over the preconceived perceptions. I was no longer one of those people. I was just a person. And throughout my life, I learned about the potential to break down barriers and normalize perceptions of belonging by being forthright about traits that might be considered odd or different from the status quo. And what if we all lived like that? What if by being open and honest, you're able to minimize the differences and bring the commonalities to the surface? I realized that when done bit by bit, person by person, we can create a society that is much more inclusive, compassionate, and united.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
Regina.
Thank you.
It's the work that you all have been putting into towards like really crystallizing what your ideas is about is really showing. Because as many of you know, if you've ever seen or a TED Talk, if you've ever seen an application for college or anything that is like kind of intense, there's a lot that goes into developing what your idea is, refining the idea. I've seen different applications that say like, practice your talk 500 times. And it's like how? But it's like in this kind of community. In this kind of community with these kind of support, it's like it gets better and better, it gets more and more fine-tuned. And the more fine-tuned it is, the more it starts to like resonate because people start to see themselves as part of that journey. So just as a quick side note, it just reminded me, Regina, like when I was growing up, how much I should disclose to people. I didn't know, like, should I tell people, like people always ask like, well, where's your twin brother? If you have a twin, how come he's not in school with us? And I didn't know how much I should disclose, when I should disclose. I didn't know if this was something that people might use against me, but kind of going back to Devan's idea, little by little, I just started sharing that, like, no, we don't look alike. Well, we kind of look alike actually, but we don't read each other's minds. Like a lot of people think that twins can read each other's minds, or feel each other's sensations. And instead of just feeling like, people are just going to think I'm a really oddball, I just had to kind of let people know that actually it's not odd. It's just, we're just unique, right? Yeah. So I wanted to know if I could pull up your normal stuff.
Oh yeah, sure. If you got the logo, I'm sure I have it around here somewhere, but.
I was trying to pull it up on my website. Let me see. Or actually, if you want me to go to Devan, and then if you can send it to me.
Yeah, go. Yeah, sure. I can find
or
it.
if you have it handy, I can.
Yeah, I can dig it out if I don't have it to send you real quick. But yeah, if you want to go, un momento.
Okay, great. So ladies and gentlemen, like we have a fun little thing that we're going to show you that Regina is not only very comical, but she's also very creative with the way that she's decided to normalize what it means to be a queer woman who's Catholic and has an autistic son and a couple other things that were part of her definition of what is normal. So she's going to pull that up for us, hopefully, because I think that it'll be quite a treat.
I swear I have it. It's right here. Ugh, I'm so organized. Okay, thank you. Okay. Phew, here is the logo.
There we go.
If you can see that.
And so can you break? Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, this just encompasses all the parts of my life. Basically, as a gay, Catholic, lesbian, suburban soccer mom, Democrat with an autistic son who recently was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I had to add that MS to it. I'm really hoping I got nothing more coming because the logo is pretty much set. I don't know how else I can change it.
Awesome. And if people are interested in checking out your normal goods, because you have like mugs and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, if you go to Regina Stoops Comedy on Facebook, there's a link that says shop and it gets you over to there. I've got mugs and sweatshirts and hats with the logo. So Regina Stoops Comedy on Facebook and shop.
There
Thank
you go,
you.
ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for Regina.
Like QVC.
I love it. I love it.
Oh yeah, here's one of the mug. Here's the mug now.
Oh, there's the mug. Awesome. I'm ordering one of those tumblers for my car.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, cool. So I'm waiting for that to come in the mail. All right, and 2 more to go. Let's bring up to the stage. Wait, I want in reverse order, right? Regina, Christina, and Devan.
Yeah. Ready for me to go?
I sure am. So what's your idea?
I'm just gonna do the full pitch for you.
Great.
Because I did invite some people, and I wanted to specifically invite some people because I thought that it would be, especially Christina and Regina, and Nelly was a surprise because of course what happened with your father, but I was so glad that you would share. And I just felt like some people in my life, before I go into my pitch, could really benefit from hearing your stories and to share all that you have. So that's why I wanted to make sure to give my full pitch, because there were a few people that I also felt that they could benefit from it. So I'm just gonna go the whole thing. It might sound kind of weird because I'm giving the whole pitch, like I'm gonna say my name and everything. But I think the way that we think about racism is dead wrong. I think racism is like the substitute teacher that we refuse to acknowledge, but who is teaching us lessons that we should never ignore. This is something I know because when I was 6 years old, my mom's youngest brother was shot and killed in the front yard of my grandparents' home. And yet the most painful moment of racism that year came from the silent but piercing moment when I came face to face with a group of 6-year-old girls on my predominantly white schoolyard who looked at me like I was disgusting and they were afraid to touch me. New York Times bestselling author Ta-Nehisi Coates once stated that the most devastating assault for people of color is in the physicality of racism and the vulnerability of Black bodies. However, for me, the subtlety of my classmates' aversion was equally as devastating, as I internalized the belief that I was less human so deeply that as I grew into adulthood, I unknowingly passed that pain of my perceived unworthiness onto my wife and our 2 sons. And so for me, it was the subtlety of racism that taught me the lies we can't discern become the compass for the devastation we can't control. And for me, while I was unable to discern certain lies about race, there are hordes of people out there who are unable to discern the lies about what is beautiful, what is normal, what is intelligent. And after a year where the whole world stood in protest against an obvious lie that Black lives don't matter, I think right now is the right time for us all to use those protests as a prerequisite for exposing the subtle lies and the fake truths that permeate our culture, devaluing all of us. My name is Devan Sandiford. I'm a published writer, award-winning storyteller, and founder of Unreeling Storytelling, a Brooklyn-based organization inspiring people to find and share their hidden truths so that we can all reclaim our full humanity. At this point, we all know about fake news, but I want to share the idea about how we must expose the fake truths that the world has told all of us so that we can take back the control we didn't even know that we lost.
Yes, yes. Woo! If somebody does not bring this man on stage, there is a problem. There is a problem. Devan, like, I'm so curious how you decided to choose, because I know that you've been kind of grappling with a lot of different stories because you're a storyteller. You're obviously like an amazing host. How did you decide on what experience you were going to highlight for this first version of your TED Talk?
Yeah, I'm not certain that I have still, but yeah, these ones felt right for, you know me, I have switched stories a few times, but just in the process of writing all these, digging up first and finding all these like painful moments that I kind of hid from my whole life. Mm-hmm. My dad will attest to this, that I didn't really share much with him and my mom even. I kind of just like hid them away and didn't talk about things that were painful. So in the process of digging up all of these stories, I found there was about 40 different stories of moments where I hadn't shared with different people these painful things. And so as I was like finding them, I tried to think about the ones that were actually a little smaller, a little more subtle. Because for me, it became like, if a lie is like super big, like we can all say like, that's a lie. Like, I reject that. I'm not going to listen to it.
Mhm.
It was actually like the little lies that like were able to like sneak past my defenses and became like my truth. Like these lies became my truth. And so I tried to find like these tiny moments that actually had a big impact. There's one of the people that we had talked about, an award-winning science writer, Ed Young, who had written about, or who had done a talk about parasites, like actual parasites that get inside of animals' bodies and can control them to do what the parasites want, not things that are good for the host. And so I thought about like these lies as parasites in my own life, the ways that they took over and started to control, and I didn't even realize that they were doing that. And to expand that to other people and be like, we actually all have these things that we've internalized. And there's one particular stat that stuck with me when I found it when we were doing this, that back in 1977 and 2000, there was 2 studies that humans are lied to about 200 or 300 times a day. And this was like back in 1977 and 2000. So this was before social media. So I think at this point, it's safe to say at least 500 times a day we're lied to. And another stat that went with that one was that we can only discern about 56% of the time we're lied to, we can discern that that is a lie. So it's just like about half of the time people lie to us, which leaves us with at the very least 100 lies a day that we accept as like, this is true. So I tried to find like little stories that had become my truth and that had a big impact so that I could relay that to people, that you need to search for those little moments in your life because they can be doing a lot of damage without you knowing it.
Indeed, indeed. I see a bunch of head nods, so I feel like, you know, you're on the right path with that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, truly, truly awesome. Thank you, Devan.
Thank you.
And last but not least, let's bring up Nelly. Let's highlight Nelly. And let's talk a little bit about your idea, Nelly, based off of your story.
So everyone's been talking about the magic word grit. There's been books written about it. There's been scientific talks about it on TED, but there hasn't really been kind of a real heartfelt analysis of what grit is. And my whole point of view is that you're born with grit. You know, people have gone through tough emotional things that form the fortitude for the next really tough moment in their lives. But what really gets you through that tough moment, you know? It's like, you know, there's something beyond just being tough and gritting your teeth and saying, I'm just going to get through this, you know? And I was thinking, you know, they write all these books, but has anyone figured out beyond grit, what else do you need? And I thought, when I was 8 years old, I got that talk from my dad, but I also got all these different images when I was a kid, I knew what college was about when I was 6 and 7 years old because my PE teachers. I heard it again when I was in high school, but the first time I heard about UCLA and USC was when my 2 adopted PE teachers were fighting, pretending to be mascots. And I remember saying, oh my God, like, okay, so what is UCLA? What is USC? And they're like, they're colleges. I said, okay, so what's college? I was the inquisitive kid. They're like, you go there to get a good job. I said, a job? Good. You make money at this job, right? They're like, yeah, automatically. I said, money? I helped my dad. I helped my dad. We are better. Okay. But it's the building. You can tell a person you can do it. But if you don't give them the opportunity to have choices beyond what they see before them, and then the vision of what they can be, grit is not enough. You have to have a vision of yourself beyond the circumstances that are before you, the hope, and a hope with actual concrete steps that someone outside, not someone outside, but something in your heart, be it a story. For me, it was art. For me, it was believing that I could step outside of East LA, I could step outside of Montebello, and I could see myself in a college. And then I started to meet more people, and I started to see them that look like me doing all these great things. So why not? For me, it's like, don't just talk about grit. Give people choices. Give those choices to every kid, to every little Barack Obama, to every little Michelle Obama that's in every brown and black neighborhood. Don't just talk about it. Build it. Make the opportunity happen. Make the visions be in their heads. Don't just measure it. Live it.
Yes, yes, 100%. I saw a huge smile from Alex in the crowd, and Lisa. I see the fist bump and the thumbs up, and so much respect and love for that idea. If anything, Nelly, what it's teaching me is that all the little Barack Obamas, Michelle Obamas, I need to get a little baby Bruin from UCLA, and be like, here, children, this is your destiny. This is it. Forget about all those other schools, just UCLA, okay? That's my own personal opinion. I'm a baby
I
Bruin. So.
understand.
I know she's SC, so she'll hate you for
My
that.
little teenagers here. I'll be like, hey, we need to beat those Bruins.
Who said that comment about SC? Was it you, Alex? Oh, that you, Anderson? Oh, snap. I got some SC people in the house. It's okay, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay. I'm gonna survive. Any Bruins? Anyone Cal? Any other UCs? No, I just gotta go into stairs. It's okay.
I mean, if it wasn't for that vision, John, we wouldn't have met. We wouldn't have crossed paths.
It's true.
My father wouldn't have been able to be on a plane. My father wouldn't have been able to see the White House. I mean,
it's true. It's true. There's a lot of.
He was my inspiration, and he got to see things he would never see in his life.
Indeed.
And I'm proud of that because he gave me the inspiration.
Indeed. And that vision that there's something better out there,
Yep.
So all the love, my ladies and gentlemen, for our storytellers, for Regina Stoops, Devan Sandiford, Christina Chiu, Nelly Nieblas, and unfortunately, Megan Henry is another phenomenal storyteller. She's an adoptee that's talking about inclusion and what it means to feel loved when you feel like part of your life has been a transaction. So lots of amazing storytellers, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody is interested in learning more about this program, please be in touch with Devan or myself. There is a big deadline that's coming up at the end of January for anybody who's interested on going and applying to the stages of TED. This is not TEDx, this is TED, the main deal. So if people are interested in that, I'm opening a very select mini cohort just for January, so people can jump into this process. You can join the crew of people that you've seen today to work on your story, to work on your application, to work on I want to be able to do one of these talks. So feel free to be in touch with Devan or myself. I guess I could put my website in the link.
It's up.
Oh, it is? Okay, great. Thank you. It's dawnjfraser.com. But thank you so much for taking this time on your Saturday, on the first Saturday of the new year, to listen to stories, to be inspired. Y'all feel inspired? Can I just open the floor for a moment, just to feel the love? Is that cool?
Yeah, man.
Yeah? Yes. Any shout outs, anybody before we leave?
So inspiring. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, JD. Thank you. Any other shout outs?
Yeah. Thank you, Devan.
Thank you. Job well done, guys. Tremendous.
Indeed. Claire, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I loved it, how the stories were fantastic, and then to hear the ideas afterwards, that was really cool. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you all so much. It was great.
It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you to Devan, and thank you to Jason and for inviting us to do this and to putting this on, and Dawn for hosting, of course. It's been a great joy to get to know each and every one of you. Nelly, Christina, Megan, of course, who's not here. But it's been wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Devan. This was truly a humbling experience, and just so beautiful. Thank you so much. And Dawn, you're amazing. I love you.
I love you too, Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much, and thank you, Dawn. I'm gonna close us out. But I do want to just, before we leave, I just want to say, like, there's such a power in storytelling and coming together this way. I think it's very healing. I think that it could be something that could be used as a really special tool moving forward for all of us to heal and open up more opportunities for other people, because the reality is, we're fortunate enough to share these stories and have positive things going on in our life. But like Nelly said, like there's a lot of people that are growing up not seeing these visions, and I grew up in a neighborhood where we were probably like a 15-minute train ride from Manhattan. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. And some of the kids I grew up with never went to Manhattan, so they stayed within like the four corners of our neighborhood. And what happens is that just keeps your mind closed. It don't really open your mind up. And I think that the biggest thing that we can all do is share our resources. A lot of things are focused on personal gain out here, and that ain't the way that we're gonna heal. It's a lot of work that we all have to do, because I think at this point we're all affected. There's a diverse group that's on this that was here with us today, and we're all affected, no matter what race we are, no matter what age, because we're all living in this hate. We're living in this world filled with hate, this world filled with labels, this world filled with fear of saying who you really are, and we should be fearless. Nothing should scare us, because look at what we just got through. Look at the year we just got through. A lot, it's unfortunate we had to lose some, but at the same time, we're here. So I just say that to say, like, we can make an impact. And tomorrow, right when we get off this call, is the moment you can start making that impact that you want to make. And my highlight, of every show that we do is that at the end, you realize, like me personally, I have something in common with every storyteller. And I think everybody in the audience would feel the same way. There's some part of the story that I'm leaving here with. I resonate with you, for what you shared. And I think that's why it's more important that we teach our youth to heal this way and work with each other and talk and communicate this way, because this is a healthy way of communicating. And Dawn, where do I sign up? I think I'm interested. But thank you again to everyone. Have a wonderful night. And we're gonna have another event coming up, so please be on the lookout. It's gonna be a really special one. You're not gonna want to miss it. I can't really give any hints about it, but please stay tuned for that. All right. And thank you to all of my storytellers. And Dawn, you have such an amazing energy. We were blessed with having you as our host this evening. And I hope that all of us can continue to build. All right. So have a great night. Take care. One love.